Logan Carter's grip tightened on his garden hoe as he watched yet another tomato vanish into the shadows of his backyard. The soft glow of the motion-activated security light illuminated a figure crouching among the rows of his cherished heirloom plants. Months of work had gone into nurturing this garden, and some nocturnal thief wasn't about to ruin it. "Hey!" Logan charged forward, wielding the hoe like a makeshift staff. "Get out of here." The figure froze, then spun around, and Logan stumbled to a halt. The words caught in his throat as he took in the sight before him. Her skin wasn't human. It shimmered in a deep, luminous shade of violet, as if lit from within. Waves of long golden hair cascaded down her back, and her eyes, bright as amethysts under moonlight, locked onto his, wide with surprise. She clutched 3 ripe tomatoes against her chest, wrapped in what looked like a silvery liquid-like fabric that rippled even without wind. "I can explain," she said, her voice rich and melodic, tinged with an unplaceable accent. "Your tomatoes?" they called to me. Logan blinked, lowering the hoe slightly. "They what?" "They sing," she said earnestly, taking a hesitant step back. Her eyes flicked between Logan and his raised weapon. Such vitality in their essence, especially these. She held up one of his Cherokee purple tomatoes. "The flavor is extraordinary, isn't it?" For a moment, Logan wondered if he'd accidentally fallen asleep in front of a sci-fi movie. "And you couldn't just knock on the door and ask? Your sign clearly says no soliciting." She gestured toward his front porch with a graceful violet-tinted finger. Logan fought back a laugh. "That's for salespeople, not for folks, or aliens. Asking for a tomato? Oh." Her head tilted, and her golden hair shimmered like starlight. "Earth customs are very inconsistent. But borrowing would imply I intended to return them, and," she paused, glancing at the tomatoes in her arms, "that would be impossible. They are meant to be consumed." Logan snorted despite himself. "You've got a point there." Her lips curved into a faint smile, softening her sharp, angular features, but the moment was broken by a sudden buzzing overhead. A drone zipped into view, its blinking red lights sweeping over the yard. Her smile vanished, replaced by raw fear. The tomatoes slipped from her hands as she pressed herself against the garden's wooden fence, her glowing eyes darting toward the hovering machine. "Are you in trouble?" Logan asked, even as every rational part of his brain screamed at him to run, call the cops, or maybe just wake up from this bizarre dream. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "No." Then, after a pause, she admitted, "Yes. It's complicated." The drone hovered lower, its beam scanning the tomato plants. Without thinking, Logan stepped between it and the strange woman, raising the garden hoe as if it would help. The machine lingered for a tense moment before buzzing away toward the neighboring yard. "Thank you," she breathed, her voice trembling. "That was unexpectedly kind." Logan shrugged, trying to act casual despite the pounding in his chest. "Well, anyone who appreciates my tomatoes can't be all bad." Then, surprising himself even more, he asked, "Do you want to come inside? Maybe tell me what's really going on?" Her violet eyes widened. "You'd invite a stranger into your home? A clearly non-human stranger who was caught stealing your crops?" When she put it that way, it did sound absurd. "I guess I'm either really kind or really stupid. Take your pick." The woman studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'm Kaela. Professional tomato enthusiast, apparently. Logan Carter." He gestured toward the back door. "Come on, Kaela. Let's figure this out before Mrs. Wilson next door spots us. She already thinks I'm weird for growing purple tomatoes. This would really give her something to talk about." Inside, Logan's modest kitchen felt surreal with an alien perched on one of his wooden chairs. Kaela sat ramrod straight, her silvery garment catching the overhead light and scattering rainbows across the walls. She cradled a mug of tea, holding it as though it might explode. "So," Logan said, leaning against the counter, "want to tell me why you're really here? Besides my apparently irresistible tomatoes?" Kaela took a cautious sip of tea, her eyes widening in delight. "This is incredible. What do you call this? Earl Grey?" Logan raised an eyebrow. "Pretty standard stuff." "It's remarkable," she murmured before her expression grew somber. Setting the mug down with care, she finally said, The truth is, I'm not supposed to be here. Logan folded his arms, sensing there was a lot more to this story than stolen tomatoes. Not supposed to be here as in, my garden? Or Earth? Kaela's glowing eyes met his. Both? Chapter 2, The Fugitive. Logan stared at Kaela, his mind racing. She sat across from him, her otherworldly appearance only slightly softened by the warm light of the kitchen. It wasn't just her violet skin or the way her hair seemed to shimmer like liquid gold. It was the way she held herself, poised yet tense, as though she was waiting for something terrible to happen. Okay, Logan said, trying to keep his voice calm. Why don't you start from the beginning? Why are you here? And why were you hiding from that drone? Kaela hesitated, her glowing eyes darting to the window. The faint hum of another drone in the distance made her shoulders tense. Finally, she let out a soft sigh and met his gaze. I am a fugitive, she admitted. Of course you are, Logan muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. Because a regular garden thief wasn't weird enough. Kaela's lips curved into a faint smile. I promise I'm not here to harm you or your planet. I escaped from a facility. One where people like me are studied and contained. Logan frowned. People like you? You mean aliens? Yes, though I prefer the term Xylarian. She folded her hands neatly on the table, her silver garment shimmering as it shifted with her movements. My kind came to this planet centuries ago. Some of us have assimilated, living quietly among humans. But others, like me, were captured when we landed. Captured by who? Logan asked. Kaela's expression darkened. Your government. Or at least a secret faction of it. They study us, experiment on us, trying to understand our abilities. Logan leaned back, his mind reeling. Abilities? Kaela hesitated, then reached out toward the small potted basil plant on his windowsill. Her fingers hovered above it, and within seconds the plant began to grow. Leaves sprouted and stretched toward her hand, vibrant and green, as though responding to an unseen force. Logan's jaw dropped. What the? My people are deeply connected to life and nature, Kaela explained. We can amplify it, nurture it. That's why your tomatoes called to me. She gave him a sheepish smile. I couldn't resist. Logan ran a hand over his face. So, let me get this straight. You're an alien, a Xylarian, who escaped from some secret government lab, and now you're hiding in my backyard because your glowing powers make tomatoes taste better? Kaela blinked, her violet cheeks darkening in what Logan guessed was her version of a blush. That's a reductive summary, but yes. And the drones? They're hunting me, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I don't have much time before they track my energy signature. I've been on the run for weeks, staying in rural areas like this to avoid detection. But they're getting closer. Logan stared at her, trying to process everything. This was insane. Completely, utterly insane. And yet, the evidence was right in front of him, glowing eyes, shimmering skin, and the basil plant that now looked like it belonged in a greenhouse. Okay, he said finally. Let's say I believe you. What happens now? What do you need from me? Kaela's glowing eyes softened. I need a place to hide. Just for tonight. Then I'll move on. Logan's instincts screamed at him to say no. To send her on her way and pretend none of this ever happened. But as he looked at her, vulnerable, exhausted, and clearly terrified, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Fine, he said, exhaling sharply. You can stay. But just for tonight. And you better hope those drones don't come back. Kaela's expression lit up with relief. Thank you, Logan. I won't forget this. Yeah, well, don't thank me yet, he muttered, standing up and pacing the kitchen. If those drones show up, I'm going to regret this real fast. Suddenly, the faint hum of a drone grew louder and Logan froze. Kaela's expression turned to panic and she shot to her feet. They're here, she whispered. Logan's heart raced. He grabbed the curtain and peeked outside. Sure enough, a red light was scanning the backyard, growing closer. Get upstairs, he hissed. There's an attic crawl space. Hide there. Kaela hesitated. What about you? I'll handle it, Logan said, though he had no idea how. Without another word, Kaela slipped out of the kitchen, her movements eerily silent. Logan took a deep breath and stepped out onto the back porch, trying to act casual. The drone hovered just above the tomato plants, its red light zeroing in on him. "Can I help you?" Logan called, his voice steady despite the panic clawing at his chest. The drone's light scanned him, and a metallic voice replied, "Citizen. Have you seen any unauthorized life forms in this area?" Logan crossed his arms, forcing a grin. "Unless you're talking about the raccoons that keep getting into my garbage, nope. Nothing unauthorized here." The drone hesitated, its light lingering on him. Logan held his breath, silently praying it would move on. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the machine beeped and flew off into the night. Logan exhaled in relief and headed back inside, where he found Kaela peeking around the corner of the stairwell. "Are they gone?" she whispered. "For now," Logan said. "But if we're going to keep you safe, we need a better plan." Kaela tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her glowing eyes. "You're not sending me away?" Logan sighed. "No, I'm not. But if we're doing this, you've got to tell me everything. And I mean everything." Kaela nodded, her expression solemn. "You're right. It's time you knew the full truth." Chapter 3. Secrets of the Xylarian. Logan leaned back in his chair, staring at Kaela with a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. He had just risked his neck to lie to a drone, probably government-issued, and now an alien fugitive was sitting in his kitchen, promising to spill her secrets. Kaela's violet fingers traced the rim of her empty tea mug. The glow in her amethyst eyes dimmed, a sign of weariness that Logan was beginning to recognize. "All right," Logan said, folding his arms. "I'm listening. What's the full story? Why are they hunting you, and why is hiding you about to make me enemy number one?" Kaela nodded, taking a steadying breath. "I told you that I'm Xylarian, but what I didn't explain is why we came to Earth. Centuries ago, our homeworld, Xylara, was on the brink of collapse. Overpopulation, resource depletion. We destroyed it with our greed and negligence." Logan tilted his head. "Sounds familiar." Kaela gave a faint, humorless smile. "Yes. It's a pattern we've seen repeated across many worlds, including this one. That's why we fled here, to start over. To live quietly and harmoniously, blending into human society and learning from the mistakes of both our people and yours." "And how's that working out for you?" Logan asked. Kaela's smile faded. "It was peaceful for a long time. We lived in small numbers, unnoticed by most humans. But then, the experiment started." Logan frowned. "Experiments?" She nodded. "A faction of your government discovered us, our biology, our abilities. They saw us as a threat and an opportunity. They began capturing Xylarian travelers, testing our energy-based connection to life, hoping to weaponize it." "Let me guess," Logan said. "You were one of the unlucky ones who got caught." Kaela's gaze dropped to her hands. "Yes. I've been held for the past 5 years in a facility they called Site Theta. It's hidden in the Nevada desert, far from any prying eyes. They studied me, pushed me to my limits. They even—" Her voice faltered, and for the first time Logan saw raw pain flash across her face. "They even what?" he prompted gently. Kaela hesitated before continuing. "They forced me to grow plants in hostile conditions. Deserts, contaminated soil, even barren landscapes. My energy allowed vegetation to flourish where it shouldn't. They said it was for agricultural advancement, but I knew better. They wanted to terraform, to use me to strip resources from other planets just as my people once did." Logan felt a chill run down his spine. "So they're turning you into some kind of living science experiment?" "Yes," she whispered. "And I wasn't the only one. There are others still trapped there. I escaped during a transfer between facilities, but they've been tracking me ever since." Logan ran a hand through his hair, trying to process everything. "So, you're telling me there's a secret government lab out there, full of aliens, and they're using you to terraform planets?" Kaela met his gaze, her expression pleading. "I know it's hard to believe, but it's the truth. And now that I've escaped, they'll stop at nothing to find me. If they catch me, I'll never see freedom again." For a moment, the room fell silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Logan rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. Okay, he said finally. Let's say I believe you. What do we do now? You can't just keep running forever. They've got drones, probably satellites, maybe even people on the ground. Kaela's expression shifted, determination replacing fear. I'm not just running anymore. I need to get back to Site Theta. Logan blinked. What? I thought you just escaped from there. I did, Kaela said, her voice steady. But there's something inside that facility, something they don't realize they've created. It's a power core, a device they developed to harness Xylarian energy. If I can destroy it, I can weaken their ability to track us. It will also release the others being held captive. Logan stared at her, his gut twisting. You're talking about breaking into a secret government lab. That's insane. It's the only way, Kaela said firmly. If I keep running, they'll just catch me again. But if I destroy the power core, I can cripple their operations and give my people a chance to disappear for good. Logan stood up, pacing the room. This isn't some movie, Kaela. You don't just waltz into a high-security facility and blow it up. Do you even have a plan? Not yet, she admitted. But I've studied Site Theta from the inside. I know their weaknesses, their blind spots. With the right help, it's possible. Logan stopped pacing and turned to her, incredulous. And you think I'm the right help? You stood up to that drone, Kaela said simply. You risked yourself to protect me even when you didn't have to. That tells me you're brave, or reckless enough to help me. Logan snorted. Yeah, more like stupid. Kaela stepped closer, her luminous eyes locking onto his. Please, Logan. I can't do this alone. I need someone who knows this planet, someone I can trust. Logan hesitated, torn between his instinct to run from this mess and the nagging sense of responsibility he felt. He thought of the terror in Kaela's eyes when the drone hovered over them. He thought of the courage it must have taken for her to escape from that facility in the first place. Finally he sighed. If we do this, and that's a big if, I'm gonna need to know everything about this facility. Security, layout, everything. Kaela's face lit up with hope. I can tell you everything I know. Good, Logan said, grabbing a notepad from the counter. Because if we're breaking into a government lab, we're gonna need one hell of a plan. Chapter 4. Laying the Groundwork. Kaela paced in Logan's kitchen, her shimmering hair catching the light like molten gold as she outlined the details of Site Theta. Logan sat at the table, scribbling notes in a spiral-bound notebook, trying to keep up with the whirlwind of alien jargon and advanced tech descriptions. The facility is underground, Kaela explained, her melodic voice tinged with urgency. It's built into the side of a desert canyon, with the main entrance hidden behind a camouflage barrier that mimics the surrounding rock. There's a secondary entrance, an old service tunnel, but it's heavily guarded. Logan frowned, tapping his pen against the notebook. So, you're saying the front door's a no-go and the back door's a death trap? Great start. Kaela shot him a look. There's a third option. The ventilation shafts. They're large enough for a human, or a Xylarian, to crawl through. They lead directly into the lower levels where the power core is housed. And by crawl through, you mean shimmy through a giant metal tube that probably has security sensors and who knows what else? Logan said, raising an eyebrow. Sounds cozy. Kaela crossed her arms, clearly unamused by his sarcasm. If you have a better idea, I'm open to suggestions. Logan sighed and leaned back in his chair. Fine. Let's say we go with the ventilation shafts. How do we get past their sensors? Or are we just hoping they forgot to turn them on? Kaela hesitated, then reached into the pocket of her silver garment. She pulled out a small, cylindrical device no bigger than a lipstick tube. Its surface gleamed with faintly glowing symbols. This, she said, holding it up. It's an energy disruptor. It temporarily scrambles electronic signals within a small radius. Cameras, sensors, alarms. I managed to steal it during my escape. Logan whistled. Handy. How long does it last? About 5 minutes, Kaela admitted. We'll have to move quickly. Logan made a face. So, it's not just a death trap. It's a time death trap. Fantastic. Kaela rolled her eyes. I didn't say it would be easy, Logan. But it's doable. Once we're inside, we'll head straight to the power core chamber. It's located on the lowest level, guarded by 2 automated turrets and a biometric lock. Biometric lock? Logan asked. Kaela nodded. It scans for Xylarian energy signatures. Luckily, I can bypass it, but I'll need a clear path to reach the terminal. And the turrets? She hesitated. Those will be more challenging. They're programmed to target any unauthorized life forms. We'll need to disable them before we get too close. Logan groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose. So, to recap, we crawl through a ventilation shaft, avoid or disable sensors, take out a pair of killer turrets, and then blow up a power core, all without getting caught or shot. Did I miss anything? Kaela's lips quirked into a small smile. You forgot the part where we save the captives and escape before the facility collapses. Logan stared at her, slack-jawed. Oh, is that all? Should we stop for coffee on the way, or will we be too busy dodging laser beams? Kaela's smile faded. I know it sounds impossible, but we have to try. If we don't, they'll keep using that power core to track and capture my people. And the longer it exists, the more dangerous it becomes. For everyone. Logan set his pen down, rubbing his hands over his face. He had no military training, no experience with infiltration, and certainly no expertise in alien technology. Yet here he was, planning a break-in with an alien fugitive in his kitchen. Okay, he said finally. If we're doing this, we need more than just your disruptor and a vague plan. We'll need tools, something to deal with those turrets for starters. Kaela nodded. Agreed. What do you suggest? Logan thought for a moment, then grabbed his phone. I know a guy. He's ex-military, now runs a pawn shop in town. Sells all kinds of off-the-books gear. If anyone has something that can take out a turret, it's him. Kaela's brows furrowed. Can you trust him? Logan shrugged. Trust is a strong word. But he owes me a favor. Kaela tilted her head, curious. A favor? What kind? Logan smirked. Let's just say I helped him out of a sticky situation involving a busted security system and a very angry landlord. Long story. Kaela gave him a skeptical look but said nothing. Logan stood, grabbing his jacket. Stay here. Keep the lights off and the curtains drawn. I'll go see what I can scrounge up. Note. Kaela stood, her golden hair shimmering as she moved. I'm coming with you. Bad idea, Logan said immediately. You're kind of hard to miss, Kaela. The whole glowing alien thing isn't exactly subtle. I can disguise myself, she said, her voice firm. It's not perfect, but it should be enough to pass as human for a short time. Logan raised an eyebrow. You can disguise yourself? Kaela closed her eyes and a faint glow surrounded her. Within seconds, her violet skin shifted to a warm tan, her glowing eyes dimmed to a soft hazel, and her shimmering hair darkened to a deep brown. She looked completely human, though her elegance and grace still gave her an almost otherworldly presence. Logan blinked. Well, that's unsettlingly impressive. Kaela opened her eyes and smiled faintly. Is it convincing? Convincing enough, Logan said, grabbing his car keys. Come on. Let's go before I change my mind. As they stepped out into the cool night air, Logan couldn't shake the feeling that his life had taken a sharp left turn into chaos. And yet, as crazy as it all seemed, he couldn't back out now. He just hoped his contact at the pawn shop had exactly what they needed, because failure wasn't an option. Chapter 5. Deals in the Dark. The glow of a flickering neon opened sign cast a sickly red light over the cracked sidewalk. Logan parked his truck across the street, glancing at Kaela, who sat rigid in the passenger seat, her human disguise impeccable but her posture betraying her unease. This is the place? She asked, her voice low. Yeah, Logan said, shutting off the engine. Tommy's pawn and trade. If it's shady, illegal, or potentially explosive, he probably has it in the back room. Kaela's hazel eyes flicked toward the shop. You trust him enough not to alert anyone about me? Logan gave her a half smile. Tommy's not the type to ask questions. Just let me do the talking, and if he gets nosy, stick to the story. You're my cousin from out of town. Quiet, shy, and very bad at small talk. Kaela raised an eyebrow. Is that a compliment or an insult? Both, Logan said, pushing the truck door open. The inside of Tommy's shop smelled like dust and motor oil. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with everything from rusty tools to old electronics. and the glass cases near the counter displayed an eclectic mix of jewelry, knives, and questionable memorabilia. Behind the counter stood Tommy, a wiry man in his mid-40s with thinning hair, a tattooed forearm, and a cigarette dangling from his lips. He glanced up as Logan walked in, his sharp eyes narrowing. Well, if it isn't Logan Knight," Tommy drawled, leaning against the counter. "Haven't seen you in a while. What brings you to my fine establishment tonight?" "Business," Logan said, keeping his tone casual. "Got something specific I'm looking for?" Tommy's gaze flicked to Kaela, who stood silently by the door, her posture deliberately demure. "Who's your friend?" Logan stepped between them, blocking Tommy's line of sight. "Family. Don't worry about it." Tommy smirked, taking a drag from his cigarette. "All right, Knight. What do you need?" Logan leaned on the counter, lowering his voice. "Something that can take out automated turrets. Silent, portable, and quick." Tommy raised an eyebrow. "Turrets, huh? That's a big ask. What kind of trouble are you in?" "No trouble," Logan said smoothly. "Just a theoretical problem I'm trying to solve." Tommy chuckled, blowing out a stream of smoke. "Sure, theoretical. You know I don't sell to amateurs, right? If you screw this up, it's your neck, not mine." "Got it," Logan said. "Can you help me or not?" Tommy studied him for a moment, then nodded toward a beaded curtain behind the counter. "Wait here." He disappeared into the back room, and Logan turned to Kaela, who was eyeing the shelves with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. "Everything okay?" Logan asked quietly. Kaela nodded. "It's just overwhelming. Your world has so much stuff." Logan smirked. "Welcome to Earth. Land of hoarders." Tommy returned a moment later, carrying a sleek black case. He set it on the counter and popped it open, revealing a compact device with a cylindrical body and a series of glowing blue panels. "This," Tommy said, tapping the device, "is a signal disruptor and EMP hybrid. Small enough to carry in a backpack, strong enough to knock out most automated systems in a 10-meter radius. It'll fry those turrets of yours, no problem." Logan whistled low. "Looks expensive." Tommy grinned. "Oh, it is. But lucky for you, I'm feeling generous tonight. $5,000 and it's yours?" Logan winced. $5,000? You're killing me, Tommy." "Hey, quality comes at a price," Tommy said with a shrug. "You want cheap, go buy a hammer." Logan glanced at Kaela, who gave him a subtle nod. "Fine," Logan said. "But I'm not carrying that much cash. Can I owe you?" Tommy's grin widened. "Sure. But you know how I work, Knight. If you don't pay up in a week, I'm coming to collect. One way or another." Yeah, Logan said, grabbing the case. "Pleasure doing business." Tommy's gaze lingered on Kaela as they turned to leave. "You ever need anything else, you know where to find me. And, good luck with whatever theoretical mess you're in." Once they were outside, Logan exhaled, gripping the case tightly. "Well, that was fun." Kaela glanced at him. "He seemed dangerous." "He is," Logan admitted. "But he's also reliable, which is why I keep going back to him. Come on, let's get out of here before he changes his mind." They climbed into the truck and drove off into the night, the lights of the pawn shop fading into the distance. "Do you think this will work?" Kaela asked, her voice soft. Logan glanced at the case in the passenger seat, then at her. "I don't know," he admitted. "But it's the best shot we've got." Kaela nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Thank you, Logan. For helping me. For believing me." Logan smirked. "Don't thank me yet. We still have to break into a government lab without getting killed. Let's save the gratitude for after we survive." Kaela gave a small smile, but Logan could see the tension in her posture. As they drove toward his house, the weight of what they were about to attempt settled heavily between them. For better or worse, they were in this together now. Chapter 6, The Final Countdown. Logan's truck rumbled to a stop at the edge of the canyon. The moon hung low in the sky, bathing the desert landscape in silvery light. Beside him, Kaela sat motionless, her eyes fixed on the faint, shimmering outline of Site Theta's hidden entrance across the rocky expanse. "This is it," Logan said, cutting the engine. Kaela nodded, her human disguise melting away to reveal her true form. Her violet skin shimmered faintly, and her luminous eyes burned with resolve. Once we go in, there's no turning back. Logan took a deep breath, grabbing the EMP disruptor from the black case. Yeah, I figured. Let's hope Tommy's toy works or we're toast. They slipped out of the truck and moved silently across the rocky terrain. Kaela led the way, her movements fluid and precise as she guided them to the ventilation shaft she'd scouted earlier. The opening was hidden behind a cluster of boulders, just wide enough to crawl through. "Ladies first," Logan said, trying to mask his nerves with a weak grin. Kaela gave him a flat look before climbing into the shaft. Logan followed, the EMP disruptor strapped to his back. The metallic walls of the shaft felt suffocating, and every scrape of his boots against the surface echoed loudly in his ears. After what felt like an eternity, Kaela stopped, motioning for him to halt. "This is it," she whispered. "The power core chamber is directly below us." Logan peered through the grate below. The room was vast, dominated by a pulsating, crystalline structure that hummed with an otherworldly glow. Two automated turrets stood guard near the chamber's entrance, their sleek barrels scanning the room with mechanical precision. "Ready?" Kaela asked, her voice steady. Logan nodded, pulling the disruptor from his pack. "Here goes nothing." He activated the device and a low hum filled the shaft. The blue panels on the disruptor glowed brighter and brighter until a pulse of energy rippled outward. Below, the turrets froze mid-scan, their lights flickering before shutting down completely. "It worked," Kaela breathed. "Don't jinx it," Logan muttered, pushing the grate aside. They dropped into the chamber, landing in a crouch. Kaela moved swiftly to the power core's control panel, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. "Hurry," Logan urged, his eyes darting to the door. "That EMP won't keep those turrets down forever." Kaela's face was tense with concentration. "I'm bypassing the failsafes. Just a few more seconds." Suddenly, a loud alarm blared and red lights flooded the chamber. Kaela?" Logan said, his voice rising. "I know," she snapped, her fingers working faster. The turrets whirred to life, their barrels swiveling toward them. "Kaela?" Logan yelled, raising his voice over the deafening alarm. "Done," she shouted, slamming her hand onto the console. The power core began to pulse erratically, cracks spidering across its crystalline surface. Kaela grabbed Logan's arm. "We have to move." They bolted for the secondary exit, a service tunnel Kaela had mentioned earlier. The ground shook beneath their feet as the power core destabilized, and the air filled with the sound of shattering crystal and groaning metal. Behind them, a fiery explosion erupted, sending a shockwave through the facility. "Keep running," Kaela shouted, pulling Logan forward. They burst out of the service tunnel just as the entire facility collapsed in a thunderous roar. A plume of smoke and debris shot into the sky, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Logan doubled over, gasping for breath. "Please, tell me that was supposed to happen." Kaela gave him a tired smile. "That was the plan." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the dust settle. Logan turned to Kaela, his expression unreadable. "So, what now? Do you go back to your people? Leave Earth?" Kaela hesitated, her glowing eyes searching his face. "I don't know. I need to warn my people that the power core is destroyed, but... Logan prompted. Kaela's lips curved into a faint smile. "But I've grown fond of Earth. Of its chaos, its beauty, its people." Logan raised an eyebrow. "Its tomatoes?" Kaela laughed softly, a sound like music. "Yes, even its tomatoes." Logan grinned, his heart unexpectedly lighter. "Well, if you decide to stick around, you know where to find me. Just knock next time, okay?" Kaela nodded, her smile widening. "Deal?" As they walked back to the truck, Logan couldn't help but feel that his quiet life had just become a lot more interesting. And honestly, he didn't mind one bit. The end.